Guys, this might be one of the most mind-blowing updates we've had on this channel yet. Ripple has been quietly, almost secretly, connected to over 25% of the world's financial market infrastructure. Yeah, you heard that right. 25% of the world's banking backbone already tied in through Ripple's technology. When I first read this report, I had to double-check. I thought, no way. This can't be real, but it is, and what it means for XRP is absolutely massive. If you're new here, hit that like button, drop a XRP army in the comments, and let's get into what might be the single biggest institutional connection we've seen yet. Because today, we're not just talking about a partnership or a rumor. We're talking about integration. Ripple technology embedded directly inside the same rails that move a quarter of the planet's money. According to the new TCS Banks Research Journal issue 16, Ripple is now listed alongside Swift, Wise, and Cepha as part of a multi-rail cross-border payments framework, all integrated through API. That means banks running on TCS BANCS can choose which rail moves their money fastest, Swift, Sepia, or Ripple. And here's the part that'll blow your mind. The TCS BANCS platform powers core banking for over 1/4 of the world's population. Let that sink in. Ripple isn't waiting for adoption. It's already sitting inside the infrastructure. Think about what that means. Every time a bank runs a transaction and chooses the cheapest, fastest route, Ripple's rails and by extension, XRP are right there in the mix. The system can dynamically decide whether to use Swift, SEPA, or Ripple based on speed and cost. You tell me, when AI and smart routing decide who wins, who's going to come out on top, the 50-year-old Swift network or Ripple's blockchain rails that settle in seconds? This is the quiet part of the revolution. Ripple has positioned itself not next to Swift, but inside the same ecosystem, side by side, a credible API-compatible solution that banks can tap instantly. So when people still say Ripple needs adoption, remember, and it's already there, hidden in plain sight, woven into global banking software that serves billions. Now stay tuned, because in the next part, we're going to break down exactly how this integration works, what multi-rail really means, and why this could trigger one of the biggest institutional shifts toward XRP liquidity we've ever seen. Let's dive deeper. All right, let's break this down step by step, because once you understand how deep this goes, it'll completely change how you see XRP's role in global finance. The report from TCS BANCS isn't just another white paper. This is official documentation from one of the largest core banking solution providers in the world, a company whose software literally powers banking systems for over 1/4 of the global population. And right there on the same page as Swift and SEPA, you see it. Ripple. This isn't a partnership announcement or a pilot. This is integration. Ripple has been embedded through APIs into TCS BANCS's multi-rail cross-border payments framework. That means the same platform that banks use every single day to move trillions of dollars can now settle those payments directly through RippleNet. Let that sink in. Banks can now plug into Ripple's technology with the same ease they connect to Swift. They can literally toggle between Swift, Cepha, Ripple, or domestic payment rails, all within one intelligent AI-powered routing system. Now, here's where it gets exciting. That routing system automatically picks the fastest, cheapest, and most efficient path for settlement. So when a bank wants to move money, the AI checks all available rails, Swift, slow, and expensive. SEPA, limited to the EU, Ripple, fast, cheap, and instant. Guess which one it's going to choose. Ripple's inclusion means it's now in direct head-to-head competition with Swift, and it's not just competing, it's winning on efficiency, speed, and cost. This is the moment Ripple's decade-long strategy starts to make sense. They didn't need to fight the old system from the outside. They integrated into it. They didn't have to replace banks. They gave banks a better tool. And the kicker, every single transaction that chooses Ripple's rail has the potential to use XRP as a bridge asset. That means as AI-driven routing systems find the best settlement path, XRP liquidity could be tapped automatically behind the scenes, increasing its real-world utility and transactional volume without a single retail investor lifting a finger. This isn't speculative hype. This is utility in action. This is the future where Ripple and XRP are not optional. They're part of the infrastructure, and the phrasing in the report says it all. Positioning Ripple directly in front of banks and financial institutions worldwide as a credible API-compatible solution for intelligent and interoperable settlement flows. That's not crypto lingo. That's banking language. That's credibility. That's adoption. So when people still say Ripple will never compete with Swift, I have to laugh. Ripple isn't competing anymore. It's coexisting inside the very network Swift once dominated. And every time a payment runs through those rails, Ripple's presence grows, not in theory, in practice. Now, in the next part, we're going to talk about how this connection expands Ripple's reach across Europe, and why the European CBDC experiment might be using the XRP ledger in ways that could rewrite the future of central bank money. Trust me, you don't want to miss this next part. Now, this is where things start getting really interesting because the TCS integration isn't happening in isolation. Behind the scenes, we're seeing a clear pattern. Europe's financial system is quietly aligning with Ripple's technology, and it's happening faster than most people realize. Let me show you how deep this connection runs. Earlier this year, the European Central Bank, ECB, and a number of European commercial banks began testing technologies for their upcoming digital euro project. Among the companies selected for these tests was a name that caught my attention: Axiology. Now, if you've been following Ripple for a while, that name should ring a bell. Axiology's infrastructure is built on the XRP ledger, XRPPL. Let me say that again. The very same ledger that powers XRP transactions is now being tested by the ECB as part of its digital currency experiments. And this isn't just rumor, it's confirmed through public statements by Marius Ergal, co-founder and CEO of Axiology and a former central banker himself. He said, Axiology is digital assets infrastructure cutting across multiple layers of the capital markets, compressing them into one efficient system on the XRP ledger. In simple terms, Axiology is building a regulated, compliant system that lets banks move money, settle trades, and tokenize assets all on XRPPL. That's massive. Think about what that means for Ripple's vision. We're not just talking about cross-border remittances anymore. We're talking about the actual infrastructure of Europe's financial future running on XRP's technology. The ECB isn't doing this to experiment. They're doing it because legacy systems are broken. Traditional cross-border settlement takes days, costs billions in friction, and locks up trillions in Nostro Vostro accounts worldwide. Ripple's tech eliminates all of that. Instant, secure, cost-effective movement of value. And here's the kicker. Axiology system doesn't just sit in a sandbox. It's built to interoperate between public and private networks. That means it can move liquidity between a private financial system, say a European bank's internal network, and the public XRPL seamlessly. When Marius Ergal said, if we really want to break through and stop talking about millions and billions, but trillions, the opportunity in front of us is in trillions. He wasn't exaggerating. This is the scale Ripple has been building towards since 2012, trillions in daily settlement potential. Now picture this, a European digital euro running through Axiology's XRPL-based infrastructure, TCS BNCS powering banks that already have Ripple APIs integrated, and both systems designed to be DT interoperable, meaning they can communicate with each other. Do you see where this is going? Ripple's network isn't just part of the new financial systems. It's becoming the connective tissue between private bank systems, central bank digital currencies, and global liquidity rails. And here's what blows my mind. The institutions involved aren't small players. We're talking BNY, Mellon, Citi, Franklin Templeton, and even entities tied to White House-level financial committees. These are the giants of global finance, not retail investors. When these systems go live, they won't need to adopt XRP. They'll already be using it behind the scenes automatically every time the routing algorithm chooses Ripple's rail. This is the quiet revolution, the one that's happening inside boardrooms, not Twitter Spaces. And we're only scratching the surface because next we're diving into how this integration connects to the trillion-dollar liquidity problem, the Nostro Vostro trap that Ripple was literally designed to solve, and how XRP could unlock that frozen capital and flood global markets with on-demand liquidity. This is where the numbers get insane. All right, guys, we've talked about the integration, we've talked about Europe, but now it's time to zoom out because this is where the entire global picture comes together. You've probably heard the term Nostro Vostro accounts. It sounds complicated, but it's really just the plumbing of the old banking world, and it's broken. Here's how it works. When one bank wants to send money to another bank in a different country, they have to hold that country's currency in a pre-funded account. Multiply that by thousands of banks around the world, and what you get is trillions of dollars locked up just sitting there waiting for settlement. It's dead money, money that can't be used for loans, investments, or innovation. And according to recent estimates, over $15 trillion is trapped in these dormant accounts globally. Now, imagine a world where that capital could be freed instantly, where banks don't need to pre-fund anything because settlement happens on demand. That's exactly the world Ripple is building. With RippleNet and XRP acting as a bridge currency, a bank in the US can send dollars, convert them to XRP in seconds, and the recipient bank in Japan receives yen instantly. No middlemen, no waiting, no pre-funded accounts. And now that Ripple is integrated into the TCS Bank platform, which remember powers banking for a quarter of the world's population, this on-demand liquidity mechanism isn't just a demo feature. It's sitting inside real operational banking systems. That's not hype. That's a quiet revolution in how money moves. Now think about what happens when AI-powered routing, the kind TCS is already using, automatically decides the best path for every payment. If Ripple's rails are cheaper and faster, which they are, the system will choose them every single time. And when that happens, XRP liquidity is tapped seamlessly, not because of speculation, but because it's the most efficient option available. This is the first time in history where efficiency itself can drive adoption. The system doesn't care about brand names, it cares about speed, cost, and reliability. And that's where Ripple destroys Swift. Swift's average transaction time, hours, sometimes days. Ripple's 3 to 5 seconds, Swift fees up to 6%, Ripple's fractions of a cent. You tell me which rail A I will pick when global institutions start optimizing for performance. Now here's where the numbers get wild. If Ripple's rails capture even 5% of global cross-border volume, that's hundreds of billions flowing through XRP annually. At 10%, you're looking at trillions in throughput. And because XRP's design allows it to settle instantly and recycle liquidity, it doesn't need to replace all the money in the system. It just needs to move it faster. Every XRP used in settlement can be turned over dozens, even hundreds of times per day. That's real utility, the kind that creates organic, sustained demand. So while everyone else is arguing about price predictions, the institutions are quietly building the infrastructure that makes XRP indispensable. And make no mistake, the banks know what's coming. They're not going to risk building proprietary, isolated systems that can't talk to anyone else. They need interoperability, and Ripple is offering it right now. That's why when people say banks will make their own coins, I laugh. Sure, they can try, but how are they going to connect their private ledgers to every other bank in the world? They won't, not without a neutral bridge asset, and that's where XRP becomes the great connector. This is why the phrase bridge currency isn't just a buzzword. It's the solution to the global liquidity crisis. And with Ripple now integrated inside the very systems that move 25% of global money, that solution isn't hypothetical anymore. It's operational. Up next, we'll talk about what this means long-term, how this level of integration could reshape the future of global finance, how CBDCs fit into the equation, and why XRP might become the digital backbone of the new financial era. Trust me, this next part is the big picture vision every XRP holder needs to hear. So, now that we've covered the integration, the technology, and the liquidity problem, let's zoom out and look at the macro picture. Because what's happening here isn't just another fintech upgrade. This is the rewiring of the global financial system. Think about it. We're transitioning from a fiat-based, manually settled, paper-driven financial world into a digital, automated, and programmable economy. And the infrastructure that underpins that new system, the rails that move money, data, and value, are being built right now. Ripple isn't standing on the sidelines of that shift. They're in the rooms sitting at the same tables as SWIFT, the ECB, the IMF, and the BIS, the very institutions that set the rules for how money moves worldwide. And while most of the world is distracted by meme coins and speculation, Ripple has been building real connections with real financial players. The TCS bands integration wasn't a coincidence. The Axiology XRPL connection to the digital euro isn't a fluke. These are strategic moves in a coordinated long-term plan. A plan that's aligning the most advanced blockchain technology with the most powerful financial institutions on the planet. Let's put this in perspective. When TCS says their BNCS platform powers banking for a quarter of the world's population, they're not exaggerating. That's nearly 2 billion people. And now Ripple's API integration means that the same core system running those banks can execute cross-border payments using XRP. That's not a test. That's infrastructure level adoption. Now combine that with Europe's push towards CBDCs, and it becomes clear that Ripple isn't competing against the system. It's becoming part of the system. Because here's the truth. The old world of finance isn't going to disappear overnight. It's going to evolve. And the technology that enables that evolution, interoperability, instant settlement, global liquidity, that's where Ripple shines. The new financial world will be multi-rail, multi-asset, and fully digital. That means CBDCs, stablecoins, tokenized assets, and yes, utility cryptos like XRP, all coexisting and interacting across a shared interoperable infrastructure. And the XRPPL is purpose-built for that world. It's fast, it's scalable, it's compliant ready. It doesn't try to be everything. It focuses on one thing, moving value efficiently. That's why we're starting to see banks, fintechs, and even governments exploring how XRP fits into their digital strategy. Because when the choice comes down to speed, cost, and compliance, XRP wins every time. This is why Ripple's partnerships matter so much. When the ECB, TCS, or major banks integrate Ripple APIs, they're not trying crypto. They're adopting infrastructure. It's the same reason you don't think about TCP/IP every time you send an email. It's just part of how the internet works. Soon, Ripple's rails will be the same, invisible to the public, but essential to how money moves worldwide. And when that happens, XRP becomes the silent engine driving global liquidity, not through hype, not through speculation, through utility, through volume, through integration. That's when price discovery becomes real, when XRP's value reflects its role in the system, not just investor sentiment. So when people ask, when will XRP take off? The answer is when the system turns the key, because the rails are already being laid. The APIs are already connected. The banks are already testing the flows. This isn't about if, it's about when. And when that when moment arrives, we're not talking millions or billions. We're talking trillions of dollars moving through digital networks that finally work efficiently, seamlessly, and globally. That's the moment XRP was built for. Now, in the next and final part, we're going to bring it all together. The vision, the timeline, the emotion. This is where we talk about what it means for XRP holders and why staying patient through the noise might be the best decision you ever make. If you've made it this far, then you already understand this isn't hype. It's history in the making. Ripple isn't just another blockchain project fighting for attention. They're the ones sitting in boardrooms with central banks, with regulators, with institutions that move trillions of dollars every single day. And for years, they've been doing it quietly, strategically, while everyone else in the crypto world was shouting about price predictions and meme coins. Ripple was building, connecting the pipes of the future financial system. And now, piece by piece, the puzzle is revealing itself. TCS Bansk integrated Axiology's testing with the European Central Bank. A BNY Mellon City, Franklin Templeton, all positioning around interoperability and tokenization. This is the tipping point in 2019. Ripple's executives said they were at the tipping point. Well, here we are, years later, and now the infrastructure, the technology, and the partnerships are aligned. This is no longer theory. This is the beginning of activation. When you see Ripple's APIs quietly connecting into systems that already handle a quarter of the world's banking population, that's not a future projection. That's now. When you hear Axiology working hand in hand with the ECB on digital euro tests, confirming they're using XRPL as the backbone, that's not a maybe. That's happening. When you see TCS BNCS using AI-powered routing to choose the fastest, cheapest rail for every payment, and Ripple is one of those rails, you realize something. XRP doesn't need permission to win. The system will choose efficiency, and XRP is efficiency. That's the silent revolution taking place beneath the surface. Because when the banks flip the switch, it won't be a public celebration. It'll be code executing in milliseconds, and every transaction that moves through those rails increases XRP's real-world utility volume and ultimately its value. It's not going to happen with a loud bang. It'll happen quietly all at once. And the people paying attention, the ones doing the research, connecting the dots, staying patient, they'll be the ones already positioned. We've seen this pattern before. Innovation doesn't explode into existence overnight. It builds layer by layer until suddenly it becomes the new normal. That's exactly where Ripple and XRP are right now. And while the world debates headlines, Ripple has been solving trillion-all problems. They're creating the bridge between fragmented financial systems. They're enabling central banks, private institutions, and fintechs to finally speak the same digital language. Think about that for a second. A world where value moves as easily as information, where you can send money across borders as quickly as you send a text message. That's not a dream, it's the design. And that's why those who truly understand XRP's purpose don't panic during quiet months. They know the groundwork is being laid. They know that behind the scenes, utility is scaling because one day soon the lights will flicker on and the entire world will realize that Ripple's technology is already running the new global financial backbone. So to every XRP holder watching this, remember this. You're not just holding a token, you're holding a piece of the infrastructure for the digital economy. You're holding a key to the bridge that connects every major market on the planet. And when that bridge goes live, like when those AI systems start choosing the Ripple rail, when the banks and CBDCs converge on interoperability, that's when everything changes. This isn't a story of hype. It's a story of patience, preparation, and positioning. The question isn't if XRP will play a role in the new system, it's how big that role will be. And as we close out today's video, just remember the tides don't ask for permission to rise. They just do. And when this tide comes in for XRP, it's going to be a tsunami. So hit that like, drop a comment for the algorithm, and if you're part of this movement, if you believe in this future, welcome to Journey to XRP. The revolution isn't coming.